What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We're back doing another preview video for the Rugby World Cup Round 2. This one, maybe the biggest game of the weekend. Probably the one I'm looking forward to the most, to be honest, out of all the games going on. Australia versus Fiji, a big deciding game in this one. If Australia go on to win this one, you have to sort of think that Fiji are most likely going to be knocked out in these pool stages, which would be a real shame because they put in such a solid performance against Wales last week. If Fiji go on to win this one, Wales have won one, Fiji have won one, Australia and Wales have still got to play against each other. Oh man, could be really tight towards the end. So as we do in the preview videos, we're going to have a run through of the teams that have been announced, give our thoughts on the teams, how we think this game might go, and finally, of course, giving a score prediction. If you enjoy this style of video, remember to press that like button, and of course, if you're not already, hit that subscribe button. It really does help show your support for the channel and help in the whole world of YouTube algorithms and things. So starting out then with the home team, or what's classed as the home team for this one, Australia. Now, Australia last week played Georgia. They won 35 points to 15. They took it by 20 points. The introduction of Ben Donaldson into this Australian team has Eddie Jones found a piece of the puzzle that was otherwise going really, really wrong for them. Ben Donaldson, with a superb game last week, has just added a new element to this this Australian team. A lot of you guys let me know in the comments in the last video that we did for Australia. You were like, you know what, Madrag, don't worry about Ben Donaldson. He won't get up to much. Got his 2 tries. He was kicking points for fun for Australia, and their big issue was kicking towards posts. Carter Gordon's not been particularly brilliant. Ben Donaldson might be the fix for them. And overall, they had a pretty solid game. They still had a couple of things going wrong for them, but a lot of the key areas that we're wanting to bring into this game, I think, worked well enough for them. So taking a look at the team, not a great deal of switches from the team that went up against Georgia. Eddie Jones obviously used that Georgia game as maybe a bit of a warm-up for this side. They're going on to play Fiji, a massive game in this pool. So they haven't done too many changes, and I think quite a few of them are mainly down to injury. So starting out in this front row, Angus Bell, David Parecki, and James Slipper taking over in this front row. Now, Taniela Tupou has picked up an injury, so he's not going to be in this game. I don't think he's ruled out of the World Cup, but I think he's definitely picked up a bit of a knock. James Slipper going in the tight head. I'm so used to seeing James Slipper play loose head. Then I'm kind of surprised to see James Slipper over there, but I think he's one of those props that is able to interchange between both places. But we'll see how he gets on, because, you know, Taniela Tupou being dropped from such a massive unit in the scrum is probably a big loss for them. Angus Bell last week had a weird one. I saw in the commentary team they were saying that Angus Bell made 53 meters in the first half. He actually made more than Corio Betty. And I was like, wow, this guy's done really well. But anyone taking part in the fantasy, they only gave him 15 meters. So I'm not sure who got that wrong, if that was the commentary team or if just the fantasy team's getting it wrong. But yeah, Angus Bell not scoring particularly well in terms of the fantasy, but I thought he had a decent enough game overall. In the lock department, Nick Frost will be coming in alongside Will Skelton still as captain, who I thought had a good game last week, actually. Didn't give away a lot of penalties. Thought he was doing a bit of leading from the front, which was nice to see. Richard Arnold, however, did give away a couple of penalties. So I'm not too surprised by seeing this swap round. He's moved to the bench now. Nick Frost being given the shot as that starting lock. I think there's still competition for that number 4 shirt of who will be starting there when you play Fiji, Wales, I mean, if you're going towards the quarterfinals and what have you. In the back row, no changes here. Tom Hooper, Fraser McWright, and Rob Valentini. 3 lads who felt, I don't know, a little bit quieter than I was expecting. I was expecting some really big ball carrying from these lads. I did see, you know, a number of big tackles, though. Rob Valentini taking the ball in hand, actually going backwards in the tackle, something he's not used to happening to him against that Georgian team. So they'll be utilising these lads again to try and get some big ball carries in this game. But as we saw with Fiji versus Wales, they're up for it. They love the physical game. I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it's going to be a superb game to watch. In the halfback partnership, Nick White coming in alongside Carter Gordon. Of course, Tate McDermott picked up his head injury and he got ruled out with a concussion, so he's actually absolutely not taking part in this game. Again, I don't think ruled out of the World Cup, but yeah, was always going to be missing this game. So Nick White coming in, you know, he's an experienced head. He knows what he's doing when he comes onto the field. I don't think it's too much of a negative for them. But Nick White coming on, just as long as he stays on the right side of the ref, right? That's all you need Nick White to do. Don't let your mustache get touched, and don't start getting angry and screaming at the ref and giving away more penalties than you need to. In the centre partnership, once again, Samu Karevi going in alongside of Jordan Pataya, who had probably one of the best games I've seen from Jordan Petaia in the Wallabies jersey. They've shifted him around over the last couple of years where he's going to be playing and stuff. His defensive element was always a big worry for me. Going on the attack against Georgia, he got his try in that first half against Georgia and looked good, looked aggressive, looked like he was going to be on the attacking front. But your defence will be tested going up against Fiji. You know, how many big defenders do Wales have that were still going backwards in those tackles? How many tackles was Naya Kalevu just running through? So Jordan Petaia, again in defence, I think might be a bit of a target for Fiji, but we'll see how he gets on. And then in that back three, no changes here. Marika Koriobetti going in alongside Nawaganita Wase and Ben Donaldson in that fullback shirt. Now, Koriobetti, again, another quiet one last week. You expect him to be on the full charge. Australia just weren't getting the ball out to him. Anytime that he got the ball, he had no room to work in, had to cut back inside and try and run around the field. They're not getting that ball quickly enough to him. Now Nikita Wase got his try and was doing a lot of work on one wing. Australia seemed to favour one wing over the other, depending on the game, and there's no way to know about it. But Ben Donaldson with a superb one last week. In terms of the replacements, super quickly then, Jordan Ulysses goes in alongside of Shup and Nongo in the replacement front row. Rest of the replacement forwards, Richard Arnold, like I said, moved to that bench from playing last week. Rob Leota still sitting on that bench as well. Replacement backs, Finest Lely Wasser is going to be coming on. We got to see him against that French team in the World Cup warm-ups with his incredible hairdo. He's got some immense hair. You will see him when he comes onto the pitch, and he'll be coming on alongside of Foketti and Vunivalu, who again, I'm still surprised to be seeing in this team. I really don't think he's at the same level as the rest of the Australian team, but we'll have to see how they get on. The bench is very similar to what we got to see last week. There's not been a lot of changes across the team, which you'd expect from a team that managed to get a decent win over Georgia, who were also maybe looking to get a couple of good scalps in this World Cup, but going up against Fiji is just on a bit of another level, right? Fiji are playing extremely well at the moment. Speaking of who then, let us move on to this Fijian team, because they had a really good game against Wales last weekend. It was probably the best game of the weekend for me last week. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I was even cheering Fiji on as a Wales supporter towards the end, because I could see them getting that try at the end. Had Semi Ranjaraja just got that ball to his hands, had they maybe gone through more than one wild outside pass, maybe they'd just gone through the passing stages, they could have got that try and maybe stolen that game right at the end. But I think they played absolutely superbly. If you let Fiji play the way they want to play, they will punish you for it with some of those hard running lines. They've got mega units going on in this game. The one thing I would like to see from Fiji, which I don't think we get to see enough of, is just some other tactics that aren't just carrying the ball super hard right to the line. I would love to see someone like Semi Ranjaraja get the ball in his hands, start running towards players, and when they're like, right, he's going to come for the big, collision, then do a little chip over the top. Completely throw people off. Everyone is expecting Fiji to come at you hard, therefore they set up their defensive line to try and deal with you. I would love to see Fiji just implement some new tactics that aren't just about going, very hard forward with the ball. They make so many meters. They made like 1,000 meters against Wales last week, and it does work for them. Sometimes they just get caught out, I think, by being a little bit too one-dimensional. So I'm really hoping some of the changes they've made for this team do help them switch it up a bit against Australia. So starting in the front row, then we've got the same front row as last week, Maui Matavesi. Matavesi, actually, one of the players that I've sort of said, I think he's a good player overall. The line-out situation for Fiji is one of the only areas where I think for Fiji may not work brilliantly. Wales didn't punish the line-out at all. There was a couple of jumps where they didn't fancy competing in the air. Wales were just left to do their line out. Fiji were left to do their own line outs. Wales obviously wanted to back themselves more at the driving maul stage rather than competing in the air. They wanted everyone on the ground just to stop the Fijian maul, which they did deal with quite well, actually. They did stop the Fijian maul relatively well. But Fiji will be looking for a big one, because Georgia did get a try off the back of a driving maul going up against Australia last week, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe that line-out situation this week, they just want to secure that line-out like they did against Wales, go for the driving maul, because I think there's the opportunity to get some tries from the driving maul in this game. Lock department remaining the same as well for them, like I've already said a little bit about the line-out situation there. The back row mixing up a little bit though. Tagivalu moving to the blindside flanker from open side last week. Lavani Bottia comes in to start this week from being on the bench from last week, and Valemi Mata retains that number 8 shirt. Now, this is a big old back row, right? Man, I look forward to see Fiji play. There's some massive players. Taiki Tagovailoa got his try against Wales. Also his yellow card, which I thought was really harsh, for that one infringement up the other end of the field. I would have been more than happy for that to have just been a penalty. Unfortunately, getting his yellow card, but he's such a good player for this Fijian side. In the halfback partnership, a switch here that I'm not entirely sure of. Kurivoli going in alongside of Teller. Now, Teller's kicking last week, not up to standard. Again, they're missing those points. Lomani took over the kicking duties for Fiji, and it felt like it got better immediately as soon as Lomani took over. Lomani's been moved to the bench and Kurivoli goes to starting this one. So we'll have to see how they get on in terms of kicking towards post, because it feels like going into this game, both teams had the same issue. Muntz is out. He's not going to be kicking towards post. Quade Cooper's not in for Australia, and Carter Gordon's struggling to kicking towards post. Teller's still struggling as the replacement. Ben Donaldson doesn't seem to be. And 3 points could become really, really vital in this game. So I will have to see who takes over the kicking duties for this one, or if Teller's been working hard on those kicking just to make sure you're going to be slotting those points through. In the centre partnership, bit of a switch up here. Josh Tuisova goes in alongside of Naya Kalevu, who had a superb game last week. I just think he's a superb player. If anyone's picking him in the fantasy, you might be scoring some really big points. Tuisova moving into centre, of course, it's one of the joys of Fiji. They basically, this entire back row can play anywhere. So Tuisova moving to the centre with Semi Radradra moving out onto the wing. So big carriers of the ball. Again, we didn't get to see a lot of Tuisova. He came on kind of late into that game versus Wales, but you did see his face when he came on. He was eyeing up George North across from him. He was like, I'm going to kill you ahead of me. And you could see the panic on some of their face. He's a big old man. I'm looking forward to see him hopefully have a really good stint in this game, as well as Semi Radradra be looking to make up for that, that one mistake probably in his career going up against Wales with that drop ball. Such a shame for him, but he'll be looking for a bit of revenge this week. And then on the right wing, Vainikolo comes back in on the right wing, and Droa Sisi remains in that fullback position. So big units. They are missing Ravid Taumada this week, who I think has done very well for Fiji over the last couple of games from the World Cup warm-ups and playing Wales and stuff. I think he picked up a bit of a knock though as well, so he's been out of this one. Vainikolo coming back in, hopefully a good replacement. They do also have a big bench, of course. In terms of the bench, then it's very similar to what we got to see last week. It's a lot of the starting players have swapped with the bench players. Tuisui's gone onto the bench in order to allow Bottia to start this one. Frank Lamani on the bench, who I really feel like I might have kept him starting just for that kicking option, but we'll see how they get on. Botitu's come into the side as well as Harbosi has been moved to the bench from this one after playing left wing last week. Again, felt maybe a little bit quiet last week, didn't get quite as much ball in hand as we would have wanted to see. Semi Radradra on that wing is certainly a big old threat. Two big teams going in for this one. What an exciting game. What do we think, score prediction-wise? I think Fiji will probably go through the hands. They'll go through those big carries. They've got so many big players. I would love to see them switch it up a bit. The kicking towards posts is a bit of a worry for me. Australia feel like they might have found their feet in terms of towards kicking at posts. And Fiji were giving away a few penalties against that Wales team. I could see Australia just slotting those threes through. However, Australia, as that game went on, did begin to break open, did begin to, have a bit more room. Georgia began to exploit a bit of the room. Georgia got a try off the back of the driving maul, which, Fiji are happy to get involved with as well. I can see this game opening up and just being a big scoring game across the board. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams are past 30 in this one and it just opens up into a bit of a tri-fest. But who do you pick to win this one? I'm slightly leaning towards Australia, having now got the kicking option maybe sorted with Ben Donaldson. I think if you're Fiji, you nail Ben Donaldson constantly. Give that man the ball on an up and under and just clatter him and get him off the pitch as soon as possible. And I think Fiji have a really good shot at this one. I can see this game going either way. But for the purposes of the video, I've got to make a prediction. I'm going to lead slightly towards Australia just because they have the ability to kick towards post better than Fiji do. So I'm going to say Australia to win by 4. that's going to be my prediction, guys. I might well change that for the Super Brew predictor when it gets round to it. But of course, make sure you are getting your predictions up on the Super Brew. The fantasy's already live because round one's already started. We had that awesome game between France and Uruguay this week. Hopefully, we're going to have some more brilliant games over the weekend. Of course, we've still got England versus Japan to do. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel to know when that video goes live as well. And let's all hope for an awesome weekend of rugby in the World Cup. I'll see you all next time, guys. Bye-bye.